a bundle, meaning how many pieces have to be tied together to be considered a bundle, right? That's basically more or less the sugya we're dealing with right now. So the Gemara says, Amar Mechisa, iged b'echad lo shme eged. Okay, which means if a person ties one piece, let's say he takes one palm branch and he ties it to just ties it for whatever reason he ties it. So that's not called a bundle. Obviously, you need at least more than one to be a bundle. You need two things together to be tied. Shalosh sheme eged. If you tie three things together, so here it says it is a bundle, and they do say here, if you want to look in your notes, and they quote Tosfot, that there is a Yerushalmi that says you need at least 25 pieces together to be a bundle. And therefore, it would seem that this Gemara is arguing on the Yerushalmi, and that therefore, and that usually halacha follows Bavli over Yerushalmi in general, and therefore it would seem that even three is a problem from this Gemara. But then he says that others argue and say they try to put this Gemara and that Gemara together. Maybe I'll look at it later. And see what it says, but it's in note 24 in Arts if you want to. So fine, but the simple understanding at this point, and it seems that's how Rashi learns it, is that you take three pieces and you tie them together, three whatever they are, palm branches, let's say, and tie them together, that's already called a bundle, and therefore it is pasul, at least midrabanan, to be used as chach. Shinaim, and by the way, I should maybe if I didn't explain it properly, even though from the Torah, if I take a bundle and I put it as chach, it's good because I put it as chach. The only problem, if you remember, that I meant was that Hachamim were afraid if we allow you to use a bundle, then you're going to put it, perhaps you're going to put it not for schach, just to storage, and then you're going to just leave it there, and that is pasul midoraita. Because like we said, for that you have to, from the Torah, you have to put it l'shem schach. It might not be l'shem mitzvah, but at least l'shem schach means l'shem for shade. And here you didn't put it for shade; you just put it as storage. So therefore, Hachamim said, don't ever use a bundle, so you don't come to use that. Okay, Shanai machloka dereser banan. If you have two pieces that you tie together, so we said one that you tie to itself is for sure okay because it's not a bundle. Three is a bundle and it's not okay. Shnaim, if you have two pieces you tie together, machloka devis rabbanan, it's a machloka devis rabbanan. Ditzanan. Learn the Mishnah. Mitzvat ezov shlosha kilachin. So this is talking about what? The mitzvah of sprinkling water of the paraduma, right? We know that someone who is tamei met, someone who was got tamei from either a dead body, either directly or however it works exactly but basically, he was like, let's say, under the same ohel. Anyway, so anything that becomes tuma met, but again, it has to be a rishon or av, because the dead body itself is a avi avota tuma. Whoever touches it or is right, that becomes av. So the only way to become pure from the tumat met in that way is to get sprinkled from the waters of the paraduma. So how do they sprinkle? They put, as we'll see right now, misat ezov shlosha kilachin. They would dip basically just really quickly, they slaughter the red cow, they burn the body in a fire, they put some other things in the fire, that becomes ashes, they take some of the ashes, they put it with some water, has to be some specific, I'm just giving you a very basic thing, but therefore, then that water, they says here that they dip a ezov, which is a kind of grass, right? It's a kind of grass in this water, and then they sprinkle the water on the person, the thing that has to be purified. So it says the mitzvah of shlosha klachin. So there's three, translated here as sprigs, okay, and that says is the full plant, okay. Anyways, it says here uvahen shlosha giv'olin, that each of these sprigs, I guess you call like the stem or the branch, has one stem. Okay, so you're dipping this into the water. Here, if you want to look, just so you know how it works, I'm just using this because I don't know myself the mitziut here. It says that it's the central. This givol is the central stalk on whose tip the capsule containing the seeds grow, or in other words, the stem. Okay, so basically you have to use 3 stems to dip it into the water. Mitzvat, okay, Rabbi Yossi Omer, mitzvat ezov shlosha giv'olin. That 3 stems, like we just said, meaning he's basically repeating what the first opinion said, but he's adding ushiyarav shnaim. But if one of the stems falls out, so then meaning, I guess, as long as you started with 3 stems, and one of them fell, I'm not sure if it means the dafka fell after you dipped it. I have to figure that out. Okay, I'm sorry. But the point is, if one of them falls, then it's still kosher. V'gardumav kol shehu. Gardumav is a stub, which means that if... Right, it means as long as the stubs, meaning like it says here that the top is very soft, so the top could easily fall off, and as long as one of the 3 is full, I see. As long as one of the 3 is full, and the other 2, the stubs remain, and it says doesn't matter what their size are, so then it's still kosher. So we got it. So basically, so one. Hold on. Okay, I apologize because I prepared something else. I thought it was later on. But anyways, the point is, one of them completely falls. The other 2 that remain, doesn't matter how much of it remain, as long as something is remaining, the stub, whatever that is, the part of that stem, it's kosher. Okay. So the Gemara wants to analyze Rabbi Yossi's opinion. That means I would have thought if the fact that 2 is enough at the end to be kosher, like Rabbi Yossi says, that even if one of them falls off, if one of the stems, so as long as 2 is remaining is kosher, so it says Tichilatonami Shinaim. Even if in the beginning it was 2, it's also kosher. They understand Rabbi Yossi to hold that even if in the beginning you only had 2, what the name we used before? Stems. Even if you have 2 since the beginning, it's kosher. So why did he say 3 and then 2? Rabbi Yossi himself said 3 and then 2. He says, mitzvah. Mitzvah here means lachatchila, which means the best is to take 3 stems, according to Rabbi Yossi. The best is to take 3 stems, tie them together, and dip it. What if you only took 2 from the beginning, and you never had 3? So says the Gemara, we're understanding that he means that it's still kosher. Why do they understand it that way? I guess because since the Hachamim say 3, so what's the machloket? And they understand the Gemara saying that the Rabbi Yossi is arguing with Hachamim in some way in that also. So it must be that that's what they're arguing as well. That according to Hachamim, you have to have 3 from the beginning. Rabbi Yossi says even if you have 2 from the beginning, it's still kosher. But just the best is to have 3. If Rabbi Yossi says 3 is only the better, that means if Rabbi Yossi holds that it's just better to have 3, it doesn't invalidate. Then Hachamim must hold that you have to have 3, which means if you don't have 3 at all, if you don't have 3 from the beginning, according to Rabbi Hachamim, it's pasul, right? So, okay, v'hatanya, but we learn the Braita. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Ezav Shetilato Shinaim, Ushara Behad, Pasul. Veno Kasher Atchesh Tichilato Shlosha, Sharav Shinaim. The problem is, Rabbi Yossi says in a Braita that not like this. He says if you started off with 2 stems, and or you started off with 3 and you only have 1 left, meaning you lost 2 out of 3, it's pasul. So according to meaning, and it's only kasher until you start with 3 and that you have 2 left, which means only one fell out. So in other words, the question is that we understood originally Rabbi Yossi says you can start out with 2, meaning if you start out with 2, b'diavad it's kosher. And now we see the Braita says, no, if you start out with 2 according to Rabbi Yossi, it's not kosher. You have to start out with 3. So it's a contradiction with what we understand Rabbi Yossi holds. So the Gemara says, Epuch. Okay, we have to switch our 2 opinions of Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi Shlosha La'akev. I'm going to go back and try to explain and review. Just let's go through the Gemara first. Rabbi Yossi is Shlosha La'akev. L'Rabbanan Shlosha Mitzvah. We're going to switch our understanding of the Machloket of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yossi, that instead of saying that Rabbi Yossi, meaning instead of saying that it's Chachamim that say that have to have 3, and if it's not, it's not kosher. It's the other way around. Rabbi Yossi is the one that holds that you have to have 3 to start with, and if you don't have 3, it's pasul. And Chachamim hold that it's better to have 3 to start out with, but if you only have 2 that you start out with, it's kosher. Okay, so I don't think it's too complicated. Basically, we have a machlok Rabbi Yossi and Chachamim on how many ezov, which how do we translate ezov, whatever that grass is. How many you have to dip into the water to purify the person from the tumat met or the object. We understood that Chachamim said you have to start out with 3, and that Rabbi Yossi says you better to start with 3, etc. But then we switch it and say the other way around. Rabbi Yossi says you need to start out with 3, and Chachamim say it's better to start out with 3. And if you didn't start with 3, you start with 2, it's still kosher. Vahatanya, we learned the Braita. Oh no, this is not a question. This is a support. Ezov shetilato shenayim sharabehad kasher. When a pasur shetilato b'sharabehad. This is the opinion of the Chachamim. That even if you start out with 2, this is what we just said. If you start out with 2, it's kosher. And even if one of the 2 breaks, one of the 2 stems fall off, so you're left with 1, it's kosher. The only time it's pasul, it's saying, is only when you start out with 1 stem. Okay? I hope you guys with me. So the Gemara asks, Shiara v'had pasul, hamrat shiara v'had kasher. The Gemara just questions the wording of the Braita, because the end of the Braita says that Ushiarav ehad. I don't know if you saw the last 2 words of the Braita was Ushiarav ehad. Ushiarav sounds like even Ushiarav means if it remains. So remaining, it sounds like you started out with something more. So it sounds like you started out with 2 and you only remain with 1. So and the Braita seems to say it's pasul. So the Gemara's question that's a contradiction of what you just said, because you just said if you start out with 2 and you remain with 1, it's kosher. Now it sounds like from the last 2 words that you start out with 2 and you remain with 1 is pasul. So the Gemara says Ela ema ad next Amud Asheteh Shtelato Kishav Ehad. So the Gemara says yes, you have to reword the end of the Braita to be saying that the only time it's pasul is if you start out with 1 kishyarav. Kishyarav means that just like we said that if you remain with 1, it's kosher. So the point is that it's only pasul if you start out with 1. Okay? So we come out with Rabbi Yossi holds you have to start out with 3. Chachamim say you could start out with 2, and even if you remain with 1, again I have to figure out what does that mean when we remain. Does that mean it broke off dafka after you dip it? I'm not sure, but the point is that as long as you start out with 2 and one of them broke off, it's still kosher according to Hachamim. Now, we brought this entire thing to say what? That it's a machloket between Rabbi Yossi and Chachamim, how much is considered a bundle. So what do we want to say here? That it's, according to Rabbi Yossi, a bundle is dafka 3. That's why you need 3. And it's because it's based on a pasuk, I believe. The pasuk says, that's right. In Parashat Shemot, Parashat Bo. This is from the Korban Pesach. If you want to see, it's in note 27. Ulkachtem, the end of the note. Ulkachtem agudat ezov. It's called a bundle of ezov. Okay, and I think from there, that's why we learn it. That's right. It says a gezer shava connecting the Korban Pesach to Para Aduma. So therefore, that it calls it aguda, which is a bundle. And okay, so in other words, in order to be kosher for Para Aduma, it needs to be a bundle of ezov. And now we have a machloket between Rabbi Yossi and Hachamim, whether you have to start out with 3. Rabbi Yossi says you have to start out with 3 ezovs. Hachamim say you can start with 2 ezovs. So since since it has to be a bundle, like we just learned from the Torah, it's a machloket between Hachamim and Rabbi Yossi, is two considered a bundle or not. If you remember, that's how we started out with. That's the beginning of the Gemara. Rav Chisda said one is for sure not a bundle. That means you just tie one schach to itself, it's not a bundle. So therefore it's for sure kosher for schach. 3 is for sure a bundle. 2, he said it's a machloket, that's what we just saw. It's a machloket. Rabbi Yossi and Hachamim, if you tie two things together, like two palm branches together, is that a bundle or not? It comes out with, according to Hachamim, it is a bundle, which means it's not kosher for schach. Remember, it goes the other way around, opposite of paraduma. Whatever is a bundle is kosher paraduma and puzzle for schach. So according to Hachamim, two tied together is a bundle, so it's puzzle for schach, and that's why they say it's kosher for paraduma. And according to Rabbi Yossi, two tied together is not a bundle, so therefore it is kosher for schach, and that's why it's not kosher for paraduma to use just two ezovs together and to use that to dip it in the water paraduma. Are we okay here? Okay, if not I don't know. To do a review, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do anyways, I guess. Okay, I mean, Bezrat Hashem. All right, yeah, I mean, again, the cheshbon was a little complicated going through the machloket, but I'm saying just the last part that I said, that's the basic point the Gemara is trying to say, is that it's a machloket. Is two considered a bundle or not? Yeah. Huh? Are we good? Okay, we're going, continuing in the Gemara. Darash Meremar. So, like the second line of Yugam Bet. Hani isuriyata desura mesakhin behu afalgav da'agadan leminyanya ba'almahu da'agadan. Okay, and we're continuing in the laws of a bundle. Bundles of surah. The bundles of surah, even though the merchant bound them, which means the person selling them, you can use it as sechach. Why? Because the only reason he bound them is to have an exact amount of how much he wants to sell. So let's say, I don't know, they would bundle 5 together to sell them together. So it's a big chidush here. We're saying even though they're tied together, I don't know if we learned this concept before, I don't remember, but we're learning that not every bundle is a pasul. It depends on why you tied it together. It's saying that if you only tied it to sell in a set amount, is okay, because it says, quotes here from Rashi, because no one ever stores them that way. They're just sold that way. I guess everyone that buys them automatically right away unties them. So therefore, since the whole problem of using a bundle was because you might store them that way and then leave it that way on top of your sukkah, so since no one stores in that way, therefore, here it says that once they would transport them home, they would untie them. So since someone stores them that way, so therefore it's not part of the gezerah of the chachamim, and therefore it's kosher to be used as chach. Okay. Rabbi Abba. Hani tzrife durbane kema shutra rashem ma'adanim shalahen kesherin. Okay, a picture would help you here. If you want, you have the article, you look at the bottom. You had these huts, okay, and as you see, these huts were made of willow branches, and they were tied on both the top and the bottom. The top was tied to form like mamash a roof. They were tied together on the top, and these are huts that people like sit in. And the bottom, if you see, also was tied to so they won't I guess unravel. So says the Rabbi Abba, as long, so it sounds like he's saying, as long as you untie the top of the hut, that means the part which is tied together, they are valid to use as chach. So I think we have to, let's see, the Gemara is going to ask, it asks, Vaha agidi mitatai, what do you mean? But they're still tied on the bottom. So isn't that still a problem? Because that makes them a bundle. Amarav Papa Dishayluhu. You're right. You untied them also at the bottom. So then what's the chidush? So you untied it completely. So then what do you, so what's the chidush? It says that even though you didn't pull them apart, so the point is they're kind of still, I guess it says they would braid them together If you look at again the picture, they would basically, because you want them to be a wall to stay together, so they would like put them together and then like kind of attach them, whatever. So the point is they're still kind of attached, but they're not tied. So the chidush is that it's not considered, and once you untie it, you don't look at it as a bundle. Memela it's kosher as schach. Okay, and that's one answer. So the chidush is that in order to be a bundle, it has to be tied. Okay, that's the chidush. If it's not tied, even right, Rav Huna ber Bishua Amar, afilu tendor shelahu. No, maybe he did not untie it. It is tied on the bottom. So why is it kosher? Kol eged she'eno asui letaltelo lo sheme'eged. There's another rule in order to be considered a bundle. It's only a bundle if it's tied in a way that you can carry it that way. And this, you cannot carry it while it's being tied only on the bottom. Why? Because if I'm correct, once you start moving it, they're gonna already unravel automatically. Right? Am I right here? Yeah. It says the rope is not actually tied to the branches. It's just braided through them. So if you would start carrying it that way, then they would slip out and they would fall apart. Right? So basically, the second rule we're learning here today is that to be considered, third rule, to be considered a bundle, it has to be tied in a way that you can carry it and it won't come apart. But if it's tied in a way or whatever that it would come, then it's not, and therefore it's kosher. Okay? That's this rule we're learning here. So the first rule was that it's only if it's tied and they store it that way, that when it's tied. But if they just tie it to sell it that way, and everyone after they buy it, they untie, that's not considered bundle, it's kosher. And the second one is this we just said. Are everyone with me? I hope. Or I guess even if not, I'm going for it, right? Okay. Amar Rabbi Abba. Yeah? Amar Rabbi Abba Amar Shmuel. Yerakot, I think this is actually where I actually really did mine. Yerakot she'amru chachamim adam yotze bahen idei v'chato b'pesach mevi'in et hatum'ah ve'en chotzim v'hatum'ah b'sim pasukah mishum avir. Okay, this is actually an interesting concept and topic, which I guess we'll just be able to start right now. That we have a concept of tumah, that there's a lot of applications by tumah. Tumat mit, again, this is what we're talking about. Tumat mit by a corpse, a dead body. Now, one of the concepts of tumat mit is that if there's a dead body in a house, in a room, that tuma goes everywhere in the room, basically. And the way it works is because you have to look at it this way. The tuma goes up to the roof, and once it hits the roof expands it to everywhere to the entire roof, and everything under that roof becomes tameh. In general, I'm just giving a general concept, okay? Sometimes it depends what the roof is made of, but this is the point. So now, this we're gonna see a halacha by maror, which we're gonna tie at the end to sukkah. So we're saying like this. Obviously, we know that there's a mitzvah to eat maror on the night of Pesach. Now, maror, it says, as you use the note, is one of 5 kinds of vegetables that are bitter, etc. And as you see, all 5 of these kinds of maror, they share the characteristic of being very flimsy. It says, I'm just reading it so I can explain this properly. They consist of thin leaves that dry out. Okay, so it's important to remember that, because that's going to be a big part of this sugya. That when they're moist, when they're still wet and moist and thing, so they have a certain like space. That means they like think of a lettuce. Lettuce has a nice big, let's say potentially a large leaf. But once it starts to dry out, they start to become less and less thin out. Okay, so now these vegetables, this maror, these 5, they can serve as a roof, which means technically, let's just imagine you put like a lettuce on top of a dead body anywhere, it doesn't matter, like lettuce leaf, okay, so let's just say it's a big leaf, and on one side of the leaf the dead is above the dead body, and the other side of the leaf is on top of whatever, something else. So this leaf can cause that thing to become tameh, because we said that the tuma goes up, hits the leaf, comes down on the other side, and makes that thing. It's like serves as a roof above to bring tuma from a debate. But okay, that's what it means. Maybe it's tuma. Ve'en hotzitzin fnei tuma means that if there is something on top of the leaf, it still becomes tameh, which is not. Which is a chidush. In other words, usually, just like a roof will transfer tuma to anything under the roof, it will also stop something above the roof from becoming tameh. So let's just say in this room, there's a dead body in this room. Anything in this room will become tameh potentially, but anything above this roof will not become tameh because the roof blocks the tuma. So this seems to be a contradiction, because it seems to say that it, on one hand, serves as a roof to bring tum'ah to whatever else is under the leaf or whatever. At the same time, it says it doesn't block whatever is above the leaf from becoming tameh. So it sounds like it does both. So that's the question we're going to see. Uposlin basukah mishum avir. The third thing, which is obviously more nogea to us, is that if you use it for schach, you put these leaves as schach, it does not work. Now, my tama, why doesn't it work? Why isn't it kosher? Since when they get dry, they crumble and fall. We look at it as not there. Meaning, really, it might be kosher schach, but since in the middle of Sukkot it might start falling because it gets dry and it starts crumbling, and you might not realize it fell, so Hacham say don't use it so that you don't come to use it when it fell. Now, obviously, we'll stop here, but the question is that why is this kosher schach? You're not allowed to use food as schach. Anything that's mekabel tum'ah is pasul as schach. So there's, I think, two understandings. This I looked at. There's one understanding is because these are not edible. That's how I think Rashi seems to say. But the problem is, if we're talking about maror, yeah, it's bitter, but it is lachor still edible, and that's what, right? So some say that this part of Rashi is not even from Rashi. Someone, I don't know, Tosfot actually says that someone added it in. But the point is that the real answer, it seems, according to Tosfot, is because this, if I'm not saying, what did he say? Because we're talking about if it never got wet, and something and a food that never got wet cannot become tameh. I think that's what Tosfot says, but I have to review that. So tomorrow maybe I'll give you a better understanding. But basically, you have to explain why it's even kosher at all from the Torah. But the point is, the Gemara is saying that it is b'etzem kosher from the Torah, but the Chacham made it asur, so that in case it falls. Okay, stop here.